All right, folks. So this is our first meeting for the ALCF social media team, and unfortunately, we weren't able to do this in person, but that's okay because we do have this great thing called technology, and there is a ton of it out there that can help us still capture this information and get it to you. I'm excited to be able to use some of this stuff because I've been using it for a long time just for just personal use, but this is kind of cool to be able to use it for this particular ministry. Anyways, so let's go ahead and get started. Um, I am right now on our ALCF social media team group page, and most of you, if not all of you, have already connected with the page, which is great. Hey, there's me shooting a shooting a silly video this morning, getting ready for our would have been meeting. But anyways, uh, right here, I uploaded a copy of the notes for what I'm going to be talking about today. If you want to go ahead and click on that and follow along, that'd be cool. Um, I'm just going to breeze by some of this opening stuff, um, just because it does set up what we're going to be talking about for a majority of the time that I'm teaching on this topic. But just understand that there's some stuff that won't be in there that I'm going to try and include, um, just to give you guys a little bit more depth on some of these things. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Before we do anything in on or actually on any of the social media platforms that we're going to be working in, okay, and there are currently four that we're going to be working in. Facebook, definitely one of them. Pinterest is another one. Instagram and Twitter. Those are going to be our major four that we're going to cover. But what's interesting is that we can't just go in and create create content for one of those and then upload it to the other three, and expect it to do well. Okay. And part of that is because each particular social media platform has what's called its context. It's context. And basically, what that means is when you're working within the context of that platform, you're meeting people, as they would normally be using this particular platform. So, for instance, with Facebook has a wide demographic to it. Um, you know, as we're going to see a little bit later on, it's one of the it is the biggest social media platform out there. But people use it for a variety of reasons, and it has a lot. Make sure that we are trying to tackle. Let me just jump right back in here. We want to try and make sure that we are tackling these five primary ways. Okay, so we want to make sure that it is simple to consume, make sure that it's memorable somehow, making sure that it's inviting to look at. So it's got to catch somebody's eye. Okay. If it is just text, can we make sure that it's fun to read, or can we make the picture? Can we capture something that's really playful or fun to view? Okay. And then lastly, can we make it relevant and relatable to people? Okay. So our basic our basic approach is going to be to hit at least three out of the five, if not all of these five areas, in order to make sure that this really pops. All right, this content that it adds some sort of value to somebody's day as they're scrolling through their news feed, and they're like, oh, let me check that out from ALCF. That looks kind of cool. A quick 20-second video. All right, That's the sort of thing that we want to try and focus on, catching people's attention within their normal consumption of posts within Facebook or within Pinterest or within these other social media outlets. Okay, and in addition to this, because we are doing this um, to to advance the gospel, to draw people into our world. Okay, we want to make sure that this has some sort of biblical relevance to it. Okay, so we want to be talking about real time events that are going on, and then being able to point people back to Jesus. Okay, being able to point people, inspirationally point people back to a Bible verse, and give people a reason to say, you know what, I needed that. I need to share this because somebody else out there could be going through the same thing. Okay, and this really helped me. This really was uplifting to me. Okay, so those are the areas that we want to try and make sure that we're covering. Making sure that we keep it simple to consume. It's much easier for a person to go on to Facebook and you know look at a picture that only has a few words on it, but that's really catchy, and be able to share that really quickly, versus somebody going and watching a 10-minute video, and then sharing that content out. Now, does that mean that we're not going to try and create content like that? Well, not necessarily. We may end up doing what's called long form videos, which is anything over 2 minutes. Okay, we may end up doing something like that if we can really find a way to tell a good story and add some value to people, and get people engaging with that video. But for the most part, we're going to try and keep things as simple as possible. We want people to make a decision within about maybe 5 to 10 seconds whether or not this is going to be able to hold their attention for long, whether or not this is going to be something that they really want to share. And if we are able to hit these 5 key areas, more times than not, we're going to get people to do that. Okay. All right. So let's look at the different types of content that we're going to be creating. Okay. Kind of alluded to it before, but we're going to be taking a look at text, okay, in the form of quotes or snippets from blog posts, articles, and they won't just be ours. Okay, maybe we come across an article on Charisma Magazine, or we come across an article, on Parenting Magazine's website or something like that, and we want to go ahead and share that out. Yeah, that's cool. But can we do it in a way that will be catchy for people? Okay. I think one of the cool ways that we can try and do that is by coming up with some sort of catchy headline for it, and saying, okay, you know what, there's an article out there that talks about the 5 best ways to improve your spiritual life. Okay, and most of us aren't doing number 4. Okay, so injecting a little bit of mystery into it just to get people to click on it and try and read through it. If for nothing, just to get to number 4, so they can see, okay, well, you know what, I probably wasn't doing that. Let me read the rest of the article. And being able to bless people that way, okay, I think is very powerful. So we're going to find a lot of different creative ways to share things with people and to get people engaged in their spirituality on a much different level than we've been doing. Okay. And in that particular example that I just gave, it's real easy for us to get wrapped up in creating content just for believers. And what I don't want us to do is to make that our primary focus. Okay, we need to be sharing this gospel with everybody. Okay, and in order to do that, We have to be able to step into different realms like pop culture and be able to engage people on that level, but still, draw them into our world at the same time. So we're going to be looking at finding creative ways to do that. Okay. Um, Let me just keep moving on here. So we're also going to be looking at pictures, and pictures are going to be a very, a very, how do I say it? It's going to be a very much something that we want to use. Okay, particularly on Instagram and Pinterest, because those are very visually driven platforms. Okay, so we're going to be looking at sharing different types of pictures, from memes to infographics to, just real candid pictures of us doing ministry, and being able to touch people in that way. Because that sort of content, it has the tendency to click very fast. And we talked about how things need to be simple to consume. Pictures are relatively simple to consume, as long as it's a good clarity picture, and there's not a boatload of text that goes along with it, and the message is simple and the theme is simple. It will help to get people to like, share, and it'll help to get those sort of pictures to resonate with people very, very quickly. Okay, and get them sharing. Because I mean, let's face it, we move at the speed of light nowadays. And we stay pretty busy between all the things that we have going on in our regular lives, and it doesn't change when we get on social media. Okay, if we can get on there and spend 10 minutes liking, sharing, commenting, scrolling through our news feed, we'll definitely do that. But in order for something to end up being relevant to us and catching our attention, it definitely on this social media form. And I want to take a look, and actually it doesn't display very well here. Um, Let me get out of this. I'm going to go somewhere a little bit different and hopefully blow this up a little bit so you guys can see it. All right, so I'm back after a couple of technical difficulties there, and I shifted over to my computer so that we could do this a little bit more seamlessly. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and shift gears, and we're going to take a look at the differences in the different platforms here, because what you do on one will will definitely not always translate over into what you do on another. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and we're just going to go across the board here and see what will and won't work in different areas. Okay, so um, Facebook and Twitter, we can see right out the gate, those are the only two platforms that we have that will only, excuse me, that will allow just text by themselves. Okay, so if you end up, sitting on the part of the team that is focused on creating a lot of text types of posts, then you are definitely going to be working within the framework of Facebook and Twitter. Now, Facebook and Twitter even have their own differences with the amount of text that you can post, because inside of Facebook you're unlimited as in terms of the amount of characters that you can type. But with Twitter, most of us know that you've got that 140 character limit. So whatever you post there needs to really, really drive home a certain point and get people to either pivot by clicking on a link that'll send them somewhere else so that they can see more, um, yeah, more of that article or more of that blog post, or more on the event that we have planned, or just kind of thinking along those lines. but we certainly need to be respectful for the fact that there are limitations there that we'll need to adhere to if we're going to post content on post that type of text content, especially within Twitter. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at video. All the platforms offer video, and in certain cases, like with Facebook and Pinterest, that those types of videos can either be short or long form videos. Okay. But what you'll notice is that with Instagram and with Twitter, you are relegated to roughly between either a minute in the case of Instagram, or 2 minutes 20 seconds with Twitter. Okay, so they favor the short form videos on those two outlets, and I'm a big fan of the short form content because it is able to draw interest from people, and get them to click on something else. If you want to see more about this particular event, or if you want to see more about what happened this past Wednesday evening at Bible study, click here. Okay, so basically, it's one of those ways that we can, if we're using video that way, it's one of those ways that we can kind of just pop in on somebody's news feed, give them a quick blurb about something, and then get them to pivot and click if they really want to see more of that type of content. Okay, so those are going to be some of the ways that we gauge how well that content is being created. If people are actually making that pivot, making that shift, and then clicking on that content and going through to something else. Okay, so we'll really be able to gauge some of the effectiveness of it long term. All right, taking a look at pictures. Pictures for the major for the four platforms we're going to be looking at, they don't differ that much in terms of like limitations that we have on the platforms. Where you're going to see the differences is how they display once you start looking at them from a mobile device. Most people right now have made the shift from being on a desktop to being on a mobile device when they're looking at their social media platforms. So we have to consider that when we're producing content. And we have to consider how those things will display when they're on these different social media platforms. Okay, so in particular on Pinterest, a lot of how Pinterest is viewed is in sort of a flipboard format, where these vertical images, okay, tend to display much better than horizontal images. Okay, so when we're looking at creating content on Pinterest, we're looking at making sure that we create things like infographics, because they look differently on they look differently in that format. Just to kind of click over to Pinterest and show you what an infographic looks like. This is what an infographic here is. Okay, so if I click on this, you'll see it how it would actually be displayed in sort of a mobile format. It's got a lot longer display to it, so it's easier to scroll through when you're on your phone. Okay, so when we start looking at creating different types of images, we have to keep that in mind, especially on Pinterest. And this is where sort of that context helps when we're creating content for Pinterest, because we know that the vertical images will scroll better when people are looking at them on their phones. Okay, all right, so let's switch over to audio. Now, within all of the platforms, you have some sort of audio that will come through as long as it is inside of a video. However, what you'll see here is that Instagram doesn't offer just a sound only posting option. Okay, and that's because they are geared more towards a visual platform, sort of like Pinterest, but Pinterest will allow you to post just sound. And one of the ways that we do that, or that we will be looking to do that, is through SoundCloud. Okay, so if we go on into SoundCloud and we look to share, we can get some of this text here, or excuse me, uh, get some of this embedding here, and we can post that. Okay, so excuse me. So this is just something that we need to be mindful of when we're looking at pushing out audio snippets and clips. Okay, and I also talked a little bit about Wooshka earlier, just to kind of show you what that looks like. We can create these things called highlights, which we can also post on Facebook and Twitter. Okay, and I think this is kind of cool, because these snippets, as people are scrolling through their news feed, they can continue to hear these. All right, which gives it a lot of flexibility. Especially if people aren't pressed for time, they can still get the message that we want them to get, but they can do it in a shorter period of time, which is great. All right. Now, here's one of the crucial ones: the ability to link out. Um, as you can see, most of them do allow you to link out. So if we post something like a URL of a website, or we post a picture that links to something else, we can have people click on that and go to another website or come to our website, right? But this is not quite true on Instagram. Okay, in Instagram, this has to be done a little bit differently. Okay, because they don't allow you to just click on the picture and let it go. So I'm clicking here right now, and I got nothing. But I just like this particular photo. But now here's where it gets a little bit different, because now if I were to go into Instagram here and just kind of scroll through, let me see here. I'm going to see if I can find a post that actually um, alludes to the fact that there is a way to get a link out. And I don't see one right away, but here's what I'll show you. If we go to our profile, okay, we do have a link in the profile that people are able to link out from Instagram. Okay, um, which for us means that this will probably end up being very fluid. Okay, this will change. This will change as we put up content that we would like people to go ahead and click on, or we would like people to go ahead and click out to. All right, so this does give us a roundabout way to make our posts clickable, but the way that we would have to do it is go ahead and post a picture, and then give people a call to action that says, if you'd like to see more, take a look at the link in our profile, and you can click there to go out and see this particular blog post, or hear more about this sermon, or whatever. All right. um, Last thing is newsfeed limitations. Okay, now in each of the social media platforms, what you're going to notice is that especially if you're a user of Facebook. This is probably where it's the most notable. You may have 560 friends um, on your friend list inside of Facebook, but the thing is, if even half of those people are active users inside of Facebook, you are probably not seeing all of those posts unless you have elected to see those posts inside of social media. Okay. So just to kind of click back over to Facebook here, um, you're not going to see everything that all of your friends post on Facebook, which is great because there's a lot of junk that goes out there that you would get really bored with, and you get really frustrated kind of scrolling through your news feed just to find the stuff that's really important to you. So, what a lot of the major players inside the social media world, what they do is they restrict what you can see, okay, to what they see is most relevant to you. Okay, so the stuff that all the posts that you either like, share, or comment on, those are the types of posts that you're going to see more often on your news feed. Okay, and they have what's called an algorithm that works behind the scenes, and it's always checking to see what you are engaged in. How long are you spending looking at a particular type of post? What's really resonating with you, in order to put things in your news feed that hopefully will resonate with you more and keep you scrolling. Okay, so if they know that, let's say, if they know that I like a lot of the stuff that Miss Dina shares on Facebook, then they're gonna keep putting stuff that she posts into my news feed. Okay, and it just it helps to keep some of the clutter down inside of the social media platform, but it also helps to determine what is the most relevant to you as a user. Okay, so what does this mean for us from an organizational standpoint? This basically means that whatever we are putting out, and I've heard different figures on this, but between 3 and up to 15% of our fan base, the people who like us, who like ALCF on our Facebook page, those are the people that will initially see that post. Okay, and depending on how well it is being consumed, then it'll start to permeate out to more and more people through liking, sharing, and commenting. So let's say we have 100 people that like us on Facebook. So it'll go out to between 3 and 15 people initially. And then as more and more people start to like, share, and comment on it, it'll start aggregating and start going out to more and more people. Okay. And one of the things that we have to be mindful of is that not everybody's going to see every single thing that we post unless they elect to. And there's a way that you can do that on the news feed. But just so that we know, there are limitations on Facebook. There are limitations on Instagram and Pinterest. Now, Twitter is the only one of these that goes the opposite direction. They allow you to see everything. Okay, so if a person wants to get on there at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:15, 7 o'clock at night, they're gonna show you everything. Okay, the problem with that is it creates a lot of noise. Okay, so Twitter is a very noisy platform because unless you're going to sit there and scroll through everything that all of your friends said, it is not going to be conducive to any sort of productivity in your life. Okay, so Twitter does allow you to do that, but the thing that we have to be mindful of is we want to try to break through the noise by sharing things that are relevant. Okay, the way that we start to really break through that noise is by getting people to tweet and retweet things that we've put out there. Okay, because then it will start to permeate and get through some of that other noise and make it onto more and more news feeds. Okay, so those are the major differences between the platforms, and I'm not gonna go too much more into it, but those are some of the major differences that we have to understand as we start to create content for each of these platforms. So now I'm gonna go ahead and come back up and just look at briefly at context as they apply to each of the platforms before we move on. So looking at Facebook, Elite actually talked about it a little bit earlier. It is the largest social media platform on the planet, and most of you probably didn't know this already, but one in four people on the planet, one in every four people on the planet is an active user on Facebook. Um, it's very hard pressed for you to go somewhere where people are not familiar with Facebook or not in some way connected with their family and friends on Facebook. Okay. So, with that being said, the proper context for Facebook is keeping up with everything in your world. With your family, your friends, entertainment, and the news, and even not so much with the news nowadays, with them talking so much about fake news, and that that's hilarious to me. But yeah, this is where a lot of people are really trying to stay in touch with the people and the I guess the topics and things that are in their world. Okay, so this is a very, very major area of interest for us in terms of sharing the gospel. You know, imagine if something went viral from us on Facebook and was seen by 35 million people. Imagine if we could share the gospel with that many people with one post. Okay, what would that mean? For being able to change people's lives. Okay, I think social media in general has that sort of effect, but with Facebook in particular, since it is the largest social media platform, this is what it gives us an opportunity to do. Okay, so Instagram, originally when it came out, it was its own entity, but now it is owned by Facebook. Facebook saw an opportunity to double up in the social media world, and um, they saw it as an opportunity to reach those people in younger markets. Okay, so at the time when they bought Instagram, um, uh, it was trending a lot with the 20 to 30 year old demographic, and it still is, but it was a different type of social media platform because of some of the limitations that were on it. Um, and it was highly visual for people. So, what ended up happening with the context of this platform is that it trended more towards like the artsy and the fun and the casual type of candid photos, and in my opinion, it started the revolution of what we call the selfie. Okay, because you see all these people that are taking pictures and posting them on Instagram now, and a lot of times the cameras turn towards themselves versus towards other things in their environment. All right. Um, and one of the other things about this particular platform is that there's a heavy influence on pop culture and things that are trending, um, whether it be, I don't know, dances, movies, a lot of things in terms of entertainment will trend heavily on Instagram because people like to do different things like parodies, uh, and they like to have a lot of fun with the different filters and things that you can use on Instagram. And now that they've they broke ground on using video in Instagram about a year ago or so. They're really starting to pivot and grow their fan base out a lot more. Now, this particular platform is not as big as Facebook, but since it's sort of like the little brother to Facebook, I mean, you can't really ignore it either. So we definitely want to make sure that we are getting things out there in this space um, as much as we can, in addition to trying to, I guess, differentiate some of the stuff that we put out between the two since they are so closely linked. All right, so then there's Pinterest. Uh, One of the cool things that I like about Pinterest is the fact that it is very much um, uh, it's very well organized. So if you go and you look on Pinterest, a lot of times you're going to be able to go and take a look. I'm just going to choose something at random here. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so you've got this particular board. I want to take a look at your stuff though. Hold on. Um, Not Bible quotes. Oh wait. Okay, so this is what I meant with the different levels of organization here. So with Pinterest, one of the cool things that you can do with it is you can create these different boards, um, and then sort of organize all of the things that you like to pin inside of those different folders, if you will. Okay, so what one of the things that I would love to be able to do with this is create different types of boards. You know, one for inspiration, create um, uh, uh, one for like blog posts, or one for like worship music. And just be able to share these things with people, um, and get things trending there, because a lot of what's inside of Pinterest um, is material that is clickable, that links to something else. So people know that because that's a part of the context for this platform. So if I go and I take a look at this post here, okay, it links out to a different website here, okay, and on this website, you're able to see what they wanted you to take a look at. Okay, so imagine if we can do this with blog posts that push people back to our website, or imagine if we can do this for sermons, um, or imagine if we can do this to get people to look at um, the missionary pages on our website, and show them the different types of things that we're doing in our community, or doing with our missionaries around the world. You know, this sort of thing gives us a great amount of flexibility to share these sort of topics with people, but put images on there that are going to be eye catching, and then draw people in that way. So I really like the way that Pinterest is set, um, to do that. And what ends up happening is, because you have these different boards, people will follow other people's boards, just because they want to know when there's updates to those boards, and you can grow an audience from that as a result. Okay. So just to kind of come back to this and give you guys a little bit of context for Pinterest. Pinterest was initially born out of the want to create a platform where it was easier to market to people. So what you initially saw here is that you have, what do you call it? Uh, a lot of companies that were going on and creating pages for them to sell different items that they had in their stores. But what it kind of evolved into for people was a way that um, uh, they could inspire people. And you know, you see a lot of like DIY projects, and you see people on there that are doing different things. Uh, from a fitness standpoint, they're sharing recipes on how to trim down in 12 weeks or whatever. So what you tend to see a lot of is a lot of inspired posts. Okay, and you tend to see people organizing their boards around things that they are aspiring to be. And why can't we share people with people um, information on how to draw closer to God in that way? Why can't we share with people you know, some really valuable information on how to improve your finances, with tithing being one of those things that's mentioned in that blog post. So I think there's a lot of opportunity inside of Pinterest to really start getting people um, uh, uh, really start getting people involved in clicking and going back to different types of posts on our website, and really starting to draw people in with a defined audience, because with those boards we'll know the types of content that they really like, because they will be following the boards that we create. Okay, and then we can start to create content around that as a result. All right. And then there's Twitter. Last but not least, now Twitter is sort of an interesting animal, because a lot of what Twitter has to offer is based on sound bites. Okay, so more recently, I'll give you guys an example. President Trump, he's been posting a lot on Twitter, as he was on a campaign trail, but you tend to see a lot of sound bites that are coming out from people on Twitter. Okay, and more recently they pivoted to having pictures and video and that sort of thing, because they want to make sure that they're keeping up with the other social media platforms. But the primary reason why most people use Twitter nowadays is to make sure that they are heard. So, for us, we're going to be looking at um, we're going to be looking at the sort of like with Pinterest, um, this heavy influence from pop culture. Or I'm sorry, sort of like with Instagram, this heavy influence from pop culture and trendy topics. Okay, and being able to put things out, put content out on Twitter, that is going to be really catchy and that's really going to move. Okay, and I put on here with the use of hashtags, and by referencing, at certain people, with this being like, um, uh, let's see, if we go over to Twitter, and I'll find you one, like at David Jeremiah. Okay, and really trying to engage a lot of people in these conversations that are happening on Twitter. Okay, and two of the primary ways that you do that is by making sure that you hashtag, and that you use people's handle names on Twitter. Okay, so that's just a little bit about the context for Twitter, and how we're definitely going to be trying to use that. So uh, that concludes the major portion of the teaching on these different social media platforms. So what I want you guys to do is to give me some feedback with this video, as to where you would like to, what you have an interest in, where you'd like to get plugged in. Because what I don't want is for us to just be like looking at Facebook and saying, all right, well, that's the biggest opportunity, so I want to plug in there. Nah, we're going to try to do things a little bit differently. Okay, we're going to try and split up into teams that are based on types of content that we'd like to produce. and then make sure that within each of these areas, whether we're creating pictures or video or audio or text, that we are looking at the context that we're creating the content within, and then looking where we can plug that in within the different social media platforms, and how it works within a lot of these restrictions that we may have with those social media platforms. All right, so in the comments below, please let me know where you'd like to get plugged in. Please give me any sort of feedback that you have or questions that you have, so that we can get this conversation going, and so that we can get started with assigning people to teams and start generating content. I hope this has been very useful for you guys, and I hope it hasn't been too long. But I pray that you guys were able to learn a lot with what I talked about today. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Reach out to me, by cell phone. My number is 904-403-4844. If you need to reach me, shoot me a text, hit me through Facebook, through this Facebook group. That's why, this was established. It's for us to have conversation about what we would like to produce in terms of content, and to share and swap ideas. Okay. Um, you know, Please, by all means, reach out to me if you have any sort of questions or anything, and please be in prayer, um, you know, um, for the creative ideas that God will be showing you and showing us as a team, as we move forward with this team. I certainly thank all of you for expressing interest in the team, and wanting to be a part of this thing. And I'm looking for really, really big things for us in this social media arena as we move forward. All right, so God bless you guys. Love you guys. And God willing, we'll see you soon.